Video number 261, verifying trig equations as identities. And again, we want to continue to use these Pythagorean identities as much as we can. You also want to substitute, in the following video here, you want to use these three, but you also want to change tangents to sine over cosine. You want to change cotangents to cosine over sine. You want to make some substitutions whenever you can. In general, what you want to do for these is you want to work with, like, here's what we're going to look at. We're going to look at something like this. Tangent over secant equals sine. What you generally want to do is work with the more complicated side. So in this case, we're going to work with the left side. All right. In this case, we're going to work with the left side again. Okay. Same thing here, left side. In general, you want to either work with the obvious, more complicated side, or if you have a choice between the side that's a fraction and the side that isn't, work with the side that's a fraction. Now, sometimes you'll work with both sides and try to simplify each side as much as you can, but basically what you're going to want to do is verify the following by working with one side at a time. In this case, very simple. You just change tangent to sine over cosine. Secant is 1 over cosine. In the previous videos, 260 and 259, we changed the trig functions in terms of sine and cosine. The reason we did that was so that we could actually verify trig equations as identities. So in this case, sine over cosine is easily tangent. Same thing with 1 over cosine is secant right here. Then we take these two fractions and divide them, which means you're going to multiply by the reciprocal, so we get sine on both sides. The cosines cancel out. Next one, sine squared times the sum of 1 and cotangent squared. So we take the, now this is already in terms of sine, so we rewrite the cotangent. Rewrite the cotangent as cosine over sine, and then you go ahead and distribute. This one works out real nice. You just multiply sine squared times 1, sine squared times this, you just get cosine squared. And actually, you probably could stop here at this step, because that's definitely a widely known and accepted trig identity. But of course, you could substitute the left side for a 1, so therefore you have the same thing on both sides. Next one, verify the following is true. We have sine squared over cosine. Now, you might be tempted again to try the right side, but I say go with the left side because it's a fraction. So we just change sine squared to 1 minus cosine squared. Then you're going to go ahead and, in general, whenever you're left with these kinds of fractions with the 1 denominator, you're going to want to divide that denominator into both pieces, in general, when you do these trig identities. Then what ends up happening is you rewrite the 1 over cosine as secant. This one of the cosines cancel, and you get the same thing on both sides. All right, and then the last one looks kind of goofy, but it's going to be all right. Now, again, you end up working with the side that's a fraction. It took me a while to do this one because at first I was trying to work with the left side, but then I realized that the right side's a fraction. Let's try that instead. And very similar to some of the stuff we did in algebra and some of the stuff from pre-calculus, you want to multiply by the conjugate over itself. And that's what we end up doing over here. So we're going to end up canceling out these middle terms over here. All you got to do is this numerator. You end up getting the numerator 1 minus sine quantity squared, right? And then this, of course, is just 1 minus sine squared, or 1 squared minus sine squared. So you just end up putting 1. So then what we do is I guess we can rewrite the denominator here. You can recognize that as definitely cosine squared, because you just do Pythagorean identity is cosine squared plus sine squared equals 1. So therefore you can subtract and you'll get 1 minus sine squared equals cosine squared. Then what we do is this. So now I got the right side. What I did was this. I went ahead and simplified the right side. That was pretty much as far as I could go, at least. That's what I was thinking during this problem. There's probably something else you can do, but I just didn't do it this way. I went ahead and stopped here. I stopped working with the right side, and I started working with the left side. So I changed secant to 1 over cosine, changed the tangent to sine over cosine. Then I wrote this as one happy fraction over here. Using common denominators, the numerator is 1 minus sine. So you have 1 minus sine quantity squared over cosine, which is being squared. And this is definitely the same thing on both sides. So we have then verified that the original equation is in fact a trig identity. So What ends up being pretty interesting again for calculus is that if you end up with something like this, maybe you don't want to take the derivative of a fraction. So then that's why you're going to want to rewrite it perhaps as a quantity squared instead. So that's where these are helpful, and that's where things are headed. So we will see you in the next video.